Welcome, everyone. We're back. This is Heretical Weekends number 28. Back with my partners in crime, Turtle 2080 and Run Gabaguy Run. How you doing, fellas?
Good. Doing pretty good.
This week, we're doing. I've been better. We're talking Trump this week, and as I keep using the term regressive liberals incorrectly, as Turtle has pointed out to me several times now, but those guys, or they're not guys, it's not a movement, it's people with the reaction with the thing, but I'm sure he'll explain it all, and it'll make complete sense.
I don't know about that, but...
I would like to say two other things. One, fuck arcane logos, and two, I am very glad that the Matt Dillahunty and Ozzy hangout is over.
I was just going to say, stop watching them. Start.
Oh yeah, we're much more interesting. And I got to say, I was blocked by Arcane and then unblocked pretty quickly thereafter. I don't know how or why the logic behind that is, but I guess apparently asking somebody when did he drop out of high school and has he ever met his father is enough for being blocked out. I know it's complete. There's way too many nice atheists on here, and it was I didn't have time for his bullshit. So
you're here to make up for the nice atheist. You're the counter.
There are people, but that are very patient, and quite frankly, I never got over the way that he treated my my turtle when he was in his hangout, and the turtle can't take care of himself, but. It's really he's just a really annoying guy, and he's not someone that I think is even kind. Most people on here try to be like the intellectual sort of they're like, well, we don't want to stoop to their level. We want to be like these, sort of, we want to be charitable and this and that. And then these guys go and shit all over them, and then they're like, yeah, but he's really a nice guy when he's off air, and it's like. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Sometimes an asshole is an asshole, and you kind of go, hey, dude, you're an asshole. But he did admit that he dropped out in the 10th and 11th grade, but he couldn't quite remember because he smoked too much weed. So,
hey, it happens. It happens.
It does happen. So, on to from one asshole to another. Trump! This is particularly dangerous time for us here in America, with Trump being as successful as he is, at least to me. I thought he would be out pretty quickly for whatever reason.
I think most people did.
I keep seeing these pictures of people doing the Hitler salute, the Nazi salute. And I know at some point he asked for people to take a vow and they all raise their right hand. But there's a cavalcade of stupid things that he said and done over the past couple of months. And it really, really makes me nervous to have this guy as even over any sort of president, anywhere near the word president. Like, standing next to a sign that says the word president is enough for it to scare me. I don't know how are things in your side of the country, guys? I know how people feel about Trump here in California, but...
Arkansas is kind of bleak. I mean, there's...
The hell you say?
Trump won the primary down here.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and
he won almost everywhere.
Well, that's true too. But Cruz was, I think, at least hopeful that he'd pull ahead down here, and it didn't happen. I mean, and this is one of the states where Cruz should have won if he was going to be a viable candidate, but whatever.
So, is there anything particular that Trump? I mean, we'll start in the very sort of basics of it. How do you feel about Trump as a president? We'll start with Gabby.
Just terrifying. I mean, first of all, I don't think that. I think there are enough common sense moderates and conservatives even that they would either abstain from voting at all or even cross over. And two, with all the crazy things that he has said in his campaign, in his debates and things, there's no telling. I mean, maybe he would do okay and not be a complete tyrant, but it's just a roll of the dice with him. You've got no background. He's not served in any elected office before. He has said things that lead me to believe that he wouldn't hesitate to do things against the Constitution, or that are illegal in order to get what he thinks needs to be done. So, yeah, I've never said that I would leave the country before if someone was elected. Bush was elected, and I didn't like him. If McCain and Palin had gotten elected, I mean, that would have been scary. But I think
I could deal with McCain. Palin is scary.
yeah, but she's I don't know. I think that she would be able to be controlled at least to some degree.
She would chase a butterfly off a cliff.
Yeah, well, if Trump gets into office and starts trying to dismantle the government in ways that give him more and more power, I mean, that's what Putin did, right? He rewrote Constitution, portions to do away with term limits and created a whole new position for him after his term ran out, before he rewrote the Constitution. And Trump has, given high praise to Putin and said, he's a great guy. Just are you kidding me?
Right. You act like Trump is some sort of egomaniacal maniac or something.
Yeah, I would say that pretty well sums it up.
All right, Turtle, how do you feel, buddy?
Feel great.
Overall. Would you leave the country?
Would I leave the country? No, but primarily out of laziness. I mean, sure, I share some of the same anxiety over Trump, but at the same time, I mean, like a lot of people are quick to, draw out like a Hitler comparison or something like that. Here's the thing with Trump, though, is I don't think he has any convictions whatsoever. I think he wants to be popular. I think he wants to be the popular kid in high school, and he's trying to get elected class president. I think he's willing to say anything to get there and do anything, which is frightening in and of itself. To me, more so than Trump himself, that I find disturbing is the supporters of Trump, because I don't think Trump in and of himself is a problem. I think he's generally speaking an idiot, but I think that people aren't able to distinguish a sociopath when they see one is a problem. I think that's a frightening indicator of our. I mean, and that's kind of why I think, I don't mean to speak for you, Heathen, but I think for me at least, why I thought, well, Trump won't get very far in this process because, he's clearly not suited for this job. But the fact that he's done as well as he has is an indicator of our society and kind of the zeitgeist of our culture at this point, and I find that to be the most disturbing thing of all. I mean, I certainly would be concerned if Trump were in office, but I mean, we have a government that has a division of power, and not even most of the elected Republicans don't like him anyway, so it's not like he'd have like unlimited power or anything. I mean, even like Bush had the support of 99% of Republicans in office, but Trump would not. So how much damage he could do long term, I don't know, but I don't think it's quite as scary as maybe it might seem. But like I said, I think the bigger fear for me is kind of just the general mindset of the nation.
All right, Skylar, thank you for joining us.
Hey, no worries, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Are you really? Is
I
it
am, man.
is it because the Ozzy and Dillahunty hangout is over?
You know what's funny is like I was watching a little bit of it, but I'm not. You know, sometimes I'm not really into the whole philosophy thing. Like it's just over my head. I'm not a philosophy guy. I'm more plain spoken, and it's kind of boring to me. It's interesting. I mean, it's precept stuff, but I don't know. I hate to say it, but I like more the drama stuff sometimes. I think that stuff's funner and more
Sure.
entertaining to watch.
Yeah, you talk to some pretty crazy motherfuckers.
I do. I do talk to some crazy people. Uh, I don't know. I think that stuff's more fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love like good theological debate, especially when you actually get to argue scripture and things like that. If you get a Christian who's actually willing to argue scripture with you and not try to avoid it, I love that stuff the best. Because then you can actually dive deep into what they believe. You can actually understand what their foundation is, instead of having a presuppositional argument where you never really get to anything. It's just a fucking circle of words, linguistic games, basically. But
Gotcha.
yeah, man, I know. But bottom line, I'm excited to be here. I've been trying to. I think a couple times I've tried to get on here, to hang out with you guys, but scheduling has never actually worked. And I saw you guys are on. I was like, this is perfect. We're talking about Donald Trump. This is exactly where I should be right now.
We're like the least convenient show ever.
Part of it, man. I got so much shit going on, man. I got like family, kids, work, and everything else going on, man. And but you guys do a great show. So I mean, that's why the main reason I'm happy to be here.
Skylar's always our one viewer, which is amazing. Every time.
A lot of times I'll listen to you guys when I go on my walks or something like that. Try to go.
Really?
Yeah, I listen to you guys' show. Well, especially if you talk about me. I'm very narcissistic. I gotta listen.
Well, see, now I'm just going to mention you once in every show.
No.
I'm
Guaranteed to have one viewer that way.
I'm actually going to troll you and just put your name in the title, and just so you can listen to the whole show. And like, what the hell, dude? So
yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I'll just say, so in light of you talking to crazy people, talk about Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what part of the country you're in. I don't know if you want to divulge that, like from a general.
Oh yeah, I'm good old Florida, man, Sunshine State. So we've got a primary coming up very, very soon here on Tuesday, and sadly, so a couple of years ago, I registered Republican to be able to vote for Ron Paul because I was kind of a Ron Paul supporter back in the day, and so I forgot to damn change my party, so I'm stuck voting for Republicans. So I'm gonna have to go. I don't even know if I want to vote for the Republican primary, but I guess I'll go vote for Kasich, just to be like the most moderate on that whole Republican primary. But my thoughts on Trump, man, is he's very scary in a lot of ways. But my biggest issue with him is he actually has no real plans and no kind of actual substance to what he's trying to get done. Right? Like the only plan I've actually heard him say he wants to do is just build a wall on the border. That's the most detailed plan I've actually heard him lay out. I mean, and killing the families of ISIS members, killing civilians, which I think is very dangerous ground. I looked at like his tax plan on his website, and I can see why it might be appealing to some people because it. On paper, some of this stuff looks okay because the middle class, lower middle class, he doesn't really raise taxes on. He keeps them pretty much the same as they are now. But the wealthy corporations, of course, he's dropping the taxes if we need more tax breaks for corporations in this country. And the thing that scares me the most, though, would be, I think Ron Gab had brought this up, was the temperament in his rallies, the people that are supporting this guy. It's scary, right? I don't think they really understand what this guy will do, like what his actual policies are. And the military thing always scares me because you never know. You never know these guys. They want to take 100,000 more troops and throw them back in the Middle East and get us all back. Not that we're not engaged now in the Middle East, but it's still extremely, extremely dangerous to start putting troops again on foreign land in these endless wars that just keep going and keep going, and there's no actual victory. And Trump seems like the kind of guy that will double down on this and be like, well, we're going to kill as many civilians as possible, or carpet bomb countries, which will just cause more hate for us. I don't know. There's just a lot to dislike about the guy in general.
We're not even counting his hair, right?
His hair.
Just not even. So, I'll go last, obviously. I kind of echo a lot of the sentiments that Skylar said. in that I haven't gone to his webpage to look at anything, but hasn't really said anything of substance. At least by now, you should get some sort of idea what the guy's about. I have no idea what this guy's about, other than he shoots off a lot of one-liners. He plays to people's emotions, and I was actually watching a clip from Bill Maher's show on HBO. I forget what it's called. I don't think it's called Politically Incorrect anymore, but it's whatever Bill Maher's show is. And
Isn't it Real Time?
Real Time, that's what it is. Thank you. So he had an author of a book about Trump, referring to Trump as a con man. And the thing with con men or confidence men is that they don't actually take anything from you, right? But they convince you to give them things. And she goes into detail on how Trump is a great con man. And that's kind of what I see when he speaks. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't say anything of substance, but people are just what he says is enough to get an emotional response that people are backing this guy. I have no idea what he's about. I know he says a lot of stupid shit, right? I have a couple of quotes up here. And maybe if you guys want to have a reaction to this, that's cool. It says, Mexico is sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. He also said that Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on. And lastly, if I became president, we're all going to be saying Merry Christmas again.
Oh, God.
It's going to become a law?
I don't think it's going to be a law. I don't know. I don't know. But that's my point, is he does stuff that people, I mean, to me, I would just call them dumb shits. But, people that are just like, yeah, that,
we agree with that. We like Christmas.
Exactly. It's a total play on emotion, and it's really scary. It's really scary when one person is just that willing to either segregate an entire group, or entire populace of people. I mean, I live in California, so we have a large population of Mexicans. I live in a city that has probably one of the single most highest population of Mexicans, in the state. And I will tell you what, I'm more afraid to go where Gabagai lives than go out my own neighborhood. Because there's an extreme lack of pickup trucks where I live. Gabagai, there's plenty. If there are pickup trucks where I live, they bounce and they have glittery paint, not for dangerous purposes. So, but my other point is that that was a joke. You're supposed to laugh because it's off color and not politically correct.
Some of the pickup trucks are used for raping people. Some of them are for stealing things, and I assume some of them are still good.
In light of Trump being possibly making completely racist comments, I made a politically incorrect comment, therefore bringing levity. Okay, never mind. So anyway, so what do you guys think about him, his position on some of his, we'll call him foreign, his foreign policy there?
That's the thing. I don't know if I believe any of what he says, or if he's just saying what he's saying because he knows it'll get people on his side. Like, I don't even know if he cares about a wall or any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's weird because I want to split it up almost, right? Like, I want to say that he's really fearful of, like, the ISIS stuff. Like, that's more genuine than it is the Mexican situation. Like, I think he uses the Mexican situation more to score points with a conservative base. Now, you got to remember, too, this is a guy, he's for universal health care, right? And has a lot of liberal positions that somehow, I don't know how they haven't talked about them during these Republican debates. So he's got to ramp up issues that he can get, like, the base with. Like, anytime you're, like, anti-immigrant, Republican base goes fucking crazy. They're like, oh, my God, yes, the Mexicans stealing our jobs, build a wall, So, like, anything he can do to kind of get them on his side, because when they start hearing, hey, you're for universal health care, you want government health care in the country, or you want to raise taxes, like, he wants to raise taxes on certain kinds of Wall Street things, which I think fiscal conservatives might throw a fit over. I think that's it's more of a game for him as far as that goes. And I think there's just not enough Muslims in this country for. I think that's one of those things where he can play that card and not have to be in danger. Opposed to like the Hispanic card, where man, you're gonna lose a state like Florida. He's not gonna win California anyways. Yeah. Well, see, some of these states, there's no game change, right? Like California, New York, he's gonna, the Democrats will win those. But his main states, Ohio, Florida, maybe some of those not southern western states, like western states like not Arizona, like Colorado, places like that. He's got to try to pick those off in order to win an election, and it's going to be very, very difficult for him.
Yeah, New York has a lot of Mexicans too, but over there they call them Puerto Ricans. Come on, I'm half Puerto Rican. I can say that, right?
I live in the middle of Puerto Rico. My area in Florida is literally 90% Puerto Rican.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. Yeah.
I thought you had a large Cuban population in Florida. Is that just
South Florida, in Miami, Central Florida, where I live. I'm like 20 minutes from Disney World, man. It is all Spanish, all Puerto Rican. Most of the population. Really? Yeah. Nice. I grew up all of it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's some good eats right there, though.
Oh, we got tons. Oh, yeah, we got tons of stuff. Especially a lot of New Yorkers down here. It's mostly like Puerto Ricans from New York or Puerto Ricans from the island, but we have a lot of New York people living in Central Florida too. So we get all the good stuff coming down. The pizza, and Spanish food. It's amazing.
They're used to the sweat, dude. They're tropical people. Like I went to Puerto Rico when I was 16, and you wake up sweating, and there are lizards in your room, and you're sweating like all the time. And I'm also half Asian, so I don't have a lot of body hair. So that stuff just goes right on the sheets. Just there's a little there's like a sweat angel of me on the sheets, like when I wake up in the morning.
What you're telling me is you're a half Asian Puerto Rican.
I'm half Chinese and half Puerto Rican.
That is interesting.
I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm a fucking unicorn, dude. Like I get that.
It's like a rare breed.
Right. Remember that look on your face when you were a kid and you saw a platypus for the first time? That's the reaction I generally get. So I have a couple of other things, a couple other quotes, and I don't want to misquote them, but there are links and stuff online. Let me get your knee-jerk reaction to these. So on Trump, on African Americans and Jews, he says, "Black guys counting my money? I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wear yarmulkes every day."
What?
I almost want to think that's not real. That's not real.
On women, all the women on The Apprentice flirted with me, consciously or unconsciously. That's to be expected. Now, the guy is such an egomaniac that if this is true and he thought that, I think he means consciously and subconsciously, because unconsciously you weren't even awake, which is pretty impressive if they're flirting with them while they're asleep. So,
yeah.
That's how powerful his sexual attraction is.
Yeah, this is a guy that scares me to like the core of my being. He has as much substance to me as those inflatable guys. Those inflatable things. Those guys with they have them in front of the car dealerships that they blow air into them and their hands wave in the air. Do they have those where you're at, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has that much substance, just fucking hot air blowing through him constantly, and he waves his arms around to get attention. It's essentially the best metaphor I can give for Trump. He's a real scary guy. Is anybody aware of?
Can I ask you, when you say that, do you mean in terms of like just being the president? Because I mean, if he wasn't running for president, would you give two shits about him?
No. I mean, as president, as a non-president, I can point and laugh. But as him as president, I will point and laugh on a boat going to Europe. You know what I mean? So I just don't know what he's capable of. He says a lot of weird shit, and I don't know where there isn't really a good replacement for Trump, right? So if Trump wasn't going to win, who would you guys have as the next candidate?
Are we talking GOP?
Yeah.
Like who would want? If it's the person I'd want to be, it would definitely be Kasich over all the other guys. Like if I had to choose
running
the
now,
best,
yeah,
the best of the worst, yeah. I mean,
agreed.
Yeah, it would have to be Kasich. I mean,
But
Cruz
I don't
is
really
not
even
good.
really know that much about Kasich at this point.
I know nothing
but-
about that guy.
Well, he's the governor of Ohio. I mean, he's still a Republican. He's still a conservative and things like that. But he's just more level-headed. Like he's willing to work with Democrats and he's done good for a state, evidently, and he's just not crazy. Well, I mean, the fact that all I have to do is just say he's just not crazy, basically, compared to the other guys, and we can kind of okay, go through, please. Like you're the least of my worries on the Republican Party.
But I think you kind of pointed out why he won't win is because he's willing to work with Democrats. I think that's and Gaviga, I'm going to kind of sort of quote you here from something you posted on Facebook, but I think Trump is a result of empty rhetoric from the right, for a very long time, and now it's made it impossible for even slightly more moderate Republicans to run because that whole I want to say demographic. That's not the word I'm looking for. The constituents are they're so far to the right at this point that they won't nominate somebody who is they want. The reason Trump does as well as he does, I think, is because Trump to them signals like kind of the demolishing of the political system. He's the non-politician, so they want him to go in there and bring a wrecking ball, and that's what they want from whoever they nominate, and they see all these other candidates as being just kind of part of the system, and they're not going to change anything.
Yeah, I mean, these are the same people that were yelling, "I want my country back," and Obama is a terrorist during John McCain's campaign. I mean, and McCain would actually step in and say, "No, that's actually not true. He's a man. He's got a family. He's whatever." But that's not what they wanted to hear from their chosen candidate. McCain just there happened to be, on balance, enough people who were voting in the Republican primaries to push forward somebody that might have some appeal to a general electorate, and there's I guess not enough, or that the vote has split for those people that are actually concerned about appeal in a general election, and because Cruz and Rubio have both stuck it out, and some of the others as well, Christie and whoever else, there were just so many for so long that it just completely diluted the vote of somewhat sensible conservatives, that it has perpetuated Trump into the position that he's in.
It would be interesting if we could go back in time and it was just down to even just Cruz and Trump to the start of this primary to see what the difference would be if Cruz would actually have come out ahead in these primaries because the vote has been split amongst these other candidates, or if Trump would still be winning. I mean, because that's been kind of the assumption is if some of these other candidates would drop out, that Cruz or Rubio, whoever, would start picking up all the votes that these other candidates have been getting. But it would be interesting. I'm not totally convinced of that.
Yeah, you could be right. Yeah, they might drift over to Trump. I mean, I can't believe that like Ben Carson and Christie both have endorsed Trump.
I can believe
he got a spot on his cabinet, is what I think. I think they offered him something. I think I have a feeling if God forbid President Trump is elected, you will see Chris Christie as either the VP or he's going to probably be something within maybe the Justice Department or something like that. And that's fucking. He's to me, he's one of the worst candidates on that stage, Chris Christie. Besides his ethics, huh?
That really, really, really obese guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but besides the fact, like, because he used to be, what do you call it, the police commissioner of Massachusetts. I think he was a police commissioner, one of the bigger guys up within the police force. Basically, he's one of the guys that are pro, basically making drugs completely legal again, anti-marijuana legalization.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the reason being is, now you think it's just really rational if you think about this. It's because this is who's bankrolling him, right? So this guy was the head of one of the head of the major police departments in Massachusetts, of the government, in that state government. He's got all this money from the police forces because that's where they make money, is off the drug bust. So he's like literally like, nope, all these states that have already legalized marijuana, we're gonna come in and we're gonna make that illegal, basically, or try somehow to push that back. He's obviously getting bankrolled by the private prison system, which is scary. Honestly, that would be one of the scariest things for me, is a Trump Christie ticket would be fucking awful. Like one of the worst things and that they could run, basically. I'm at the point where I don't even want to vote for Hillary, but I'm going to have to goddamn vote for her if she gets the nominee, and it sucks, basically. I really don't. I don't want to vote for her. And what are you going to do? Like, am I gonna vote third party when it's going to be Trump versus Clinton if Bernie can't pull it off?
Yeah, I hear you on that one. It would behoove me to leave the Trump topic with at least not showing this. So,
sentences.
Before you guys erupt in laughter.
Yeah.
There you go. So, this is what scares me about people the most when I see Trump rallies. The Trump salute. It's been in the news. We all heard about it. We all seen it. Casual accident, hidden meaning. What do you guys think?
I actually haven't heard of that. What is? Is there more of this? No.
Yes. So
I've seen that same image, but that's the only one I've seen.
Okay, so I will. Hold on, because you guys are putting me on the spot. Crowd salute. Let me get into my Google images here. So, I gotta find a good picture of it. So during a rally, Trump asked for people to hold up their right hand and swear that they will vote for him.
I did hear of that, but...
Okay, so there's a bunch of images of people holding up their right hand like that. So now they're comparing it to the Nazi salute. It was in the midst of one of his, speeches. But now raising the right hand, some people do it like this, which is more akin to when you go to church and stuff. But there's some people that do this guy. Look at this guy. He's all about it. He's ready to goose step right there, that guy. So they're drawing comparisons to him having these sort of Hitler-esque sort of, not that it was his goal to have a Nazi salute, but that's where the Hitler comparison started being drawn the past week or so.
Yeah, I think he's dumb, but I don't think too much of it, other than it's just kind of a funny stupidity. To me, the bigger thing, and I'm not. This is not my original thought, but I've heard somebody else kind of point this out. To me, the whole backwards thinking of making your audience commit to voting for you. Why don't you commit to working for your audience instead? Why don't you? It should be you pledging yourself to do what they want and then allowing them to vote as they please. I think it's kind of backwards thinking, and it feels like a little religious to me.
Does he have an altar call after he gets their commitment?
To make your supporters pledge themselves to you.
Did you miss the part earlier where I referred to him as an egomaniac?
No, I didn't. I think that's 100% accurate. It's just this is just a good example of it, in my opinion. But
He's like when you go to a bar. Have you ever been to a bar and there's always that one stuck-up bartender that think you have to go to him because he makes the drinks and you got to kiss his ass. Not that he works for you because you're the customer. He's like that.
yeah.
So, if we're all done with Trump, are we all done with Trump? Anybody have any last words?
I don't think so.
We're good. Okay, so I'm gonna toss this one over to Turtle because I keep fucking up regressive, left, liberal, whatever.
Yeah, well, it's confusing. It's a confusing subject, but I think it's
Take it away,
interesting. I think it's an interesting subject, and I don't quite know exactly how I feel about it at this point. So, I personally kind of stumbled onto this a couple of weeks ago. I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. I've been watching because of the election. I've been watching, more political stuff, and I've been watching a little bit of the Young Turks coverage of the election online. And if you're not familiar with the Young Turks is quasi news coverage that's online. It was started by, I believe it's pronounced Cenk Uygur, who formerly worked for MSNBC. But anyway, I've been watching, and they are absolutely 100% a left-leaning organization. No doubts or attempts to hide that on their part either. But I'd been watching some of their coverage, and then through a link on the side of YouTube or whatever, I saw I believe I saw a interview between Cenk and then Sam Harris, and I like Sam Harris, and I like Cenk, so I was like, oh, that'll be interesting to watch, and the interview is in regards to basically what had happened is a little bit more than a year ago. I think it was at the end of 2014 when Bill Maher and Ben Affleck and Sam Harris got into that exchange on Real Time about Islam, and there was this big kind of blowback against Sam Harris and Bill Maher, and Ben Affleck had accused them of being racist and their dialogue of being racist. So there was this big kind of blowback against those two, and after that, and I was unaware of this at the time because I wasn't really paying attention, but and I remember when that happened, and I'm a supporter of Sam Harris, and I understand his views on the issue, and I think it's mostly a misunderstanding, or people not really thinking thoroughly about what he's saying, I guess. But that led to then on the Young Turks. The Young Turks took, and Cenk in particular, took Ben Affleck's side and kind of, in my opinion, smeared Sam Harris in particular on this issue, and they had in a couple of different guests, including Reza Aslan, who, if you're familiar with him, he's kind of full of shit anyway, but he's on there, and they're basically misrepresenting Sam's views, and then that's what led to this interview with Sam Harris and Cenk, and it's like a 3-hour-long interview, and I'm pretty sure I watched it in its entirety, if not its entirety, like 90% of it, and it's clear that Cenk has his point of view, and he won't allow Sam to kind of make his points without kind of misrepresenting his views. But kind of on the heels of all of that, there became like a lot of support for Sam Harris. And if you look at these videos by the Young Turks that are about Sam Harris, you'll notice that a lot of the like to dislike, the ratio on those, like dislikes, are significantly higher, especially considering they're hosted by the Young Turks. So there's a lot of support for Sam Harris, and it kind of led to this group of people, or it's not even like a group of people, but this online YouTube culture that's now pushing back against the pushback against Sam Harris and Bill Maher. And I don't know who coined the term, but so the Sam Harris supporters are calling the, for instance, Cenk Uygur and Reza Aslan, they're calling them the regressive left. And I am 99% in agreement with these people, who I will, from this point on, refer to as the anti-regressives, just for clarity's sake. And I am in terms of this discussion on Islam, I am 99% in agreement with the anti-regressives. And in fact, I subscribe to the Rubin Report, which is hosted by Dave Rubin, who is part of this anti-regressive group, and watched a bunch of his videos. And for the most part, the big issue is kind of this issue of free speech, where Sam Harris and some of these other people who have been kind of criticized by, for instance, Ben Affleck. Basically, it boils down to Ben Affleck calls Sam Harris a racist or a bigot or whatever, or even just the implication of any of these things, and that kind of, for a large portion of the audience, nullifies whatever argument Sam Harris is putting out there. And so the anti-regressives, and I think rightfully so, point out that this is bullshit. This is a bullshit way of arguing. You're essentially just taking away the conversation and undermining somebody's point of view without, having to argue for it. Because if you watch that interview, Ben Affleck says almost nothing other than calling Bill Maher and Sam Harris racist, or saying that it's bigoted. The only other thing he really does is say, well, there's other Muslims out there who don't do this. And so the anti-regressives, their kind of unifying subject is this idea of free speech. And so then watching more of these videos by anti-regressives, it gets away from Islam, and then another big target is feminism. And to some extent, and I've seen less of this, but like Black Lives Matters, and again, the unifying theme of all these videos is the idea of free speech, and not using terms like racism or sexism to nullify an opponent's argument. So they'll point to videos of we lost Skylar, fiction. They'll point to videos of certain, and I have to be very specific here, but certain feminists who will go out of their way to attack male groups or things like that. They'll go and demonstrate at I'm blanking on the term, but a group of what's the word I'm looking for? Not like a male feminist group. Obviously, that's not
men's rights.
A men's rights group. Thank you. Something like that. So there'll be a men's rights group having a meeting, and then outside there's a group of feminists protesting, and in some cases behaving inappropriately according to these anti-regressive people. And so it's a lot of what they do, I think, is kind of, because for me as a liberal, my instinct is to defend feminism and to defend multiculturalism, and that's kind of, I think, the liberal instinct. And so there's the anti-regressives a lot of times, or all the time, are kind of putting those ideas to the test and questioning, well, are we really being fair in this case, or are we allowing this group to bully other people? Sorry, my headphone just told me it was shutting down on me. Are we letting these groups kind of bully the conversation and take over? And I personally, like I said, I agree with them pretty much 99 to 100% on the Islam stuff, and then I'm still up in the air on some of these other issues. I think the underlying idea is correct, that we need to be willing to, I think when I was talking to you guys on chat, I said put our sacred cows on the barbecue if they don't match up with reality. But I feel like in some cases it's almost exactly what the quote-unquote regressive left is doing, like this kind of knee-jerk, like a knee-jerk reaction against the quote-unquote regressive left. So, for instance, I was watching this one video that
I'm so
was...
confused right now, by the way, Turtle, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. It is confusing. So, for instance, this one, and I hesitate to call him an anti-regressive just because I'm not even sure he's a liberal, because in theory all of these anti-regressives are liberals as far as I understand. They're just kind of criticizing what they see to be as the liberalism gone wrong. But this one guy is criticizing, during when Obama went to speak at the mosque, there's this one clip of Obama saying that he would like to see, I'm misquoting here, but the general idea is correct, but Obama was saying that he didn't want, every time he saw a Muslim on television, for it to be an extremist or whatever, that Muslims would be represented, more normally or something like that. That's the basic idea. And so this anti-regressive is essentially calling Obama, in this case, a regressive, by saying, and this guy is saying that we shouldn't be propping up anything just for the sake of propping it up. If Muslims are on TV, great. If they're not, great. Don't try and push this just for the sake of quote-unquote equality. So, like in that case, I feel like he's kind of putting words in Obama's mouth, and I don't fully agree with his sentiment. I understand what he's saying about, like, not just push, like, another thing that regressives will say, is kind of this, in regards to feminism, is this idea of gender equality. Feminists, like, are pushing too far to the point of where it's no longer equal, or they're fighting for things that don't really exist.
I thought regressive lefts were people that, like, if somebody wore a Pocahontas costume to the Christmas party or the Halloween party, they get mad.
Yeah, that would be included as well. Yes, and so the anti-regressives then would be critical of the quote-unquote regressive for taking that position.
Yeah, it's kind of like the hyper politically correct kind of police, basically.
Yeah, that would be the regressive left, and then the anti-regressive left would challenge them. And I agree with that for the most part. But it gets a little iffy on some of these videos when you're watching them. Like I said, just because I think it pushes too far, and in some cases it just ignores history. like there are differences in our culture about the status of women and African Americans and whatever, that you can't just say, well, everybody's treated equally or whatever, therefore everything is equal. Well, if the game board isn't, if we're starting at this point in history and the game board isn't level, we have to kind of acknowledge that to some extent. And I'm not pushing any, like I haven't specifically heard any arguments against affirmation action, or I'm sorry, affirmative action, but I feel like that would be, for instance, a issue that an anti-regressive would have a problem with. I personally haven't heard that, but those kinds of ideas, it seems like they are generally against.
As the only brown person in the room, I'm totally okay with affirmative action.
There you go.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But it's a complicated discussion, and it's kind of only being had on one end for the most part. I don't see any, and it's not like the regressive left call themselves that. It's a pejorative put on this group of people by what I'm calling the anti-regressives. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that I've just kind of stumbled onto, and I don't know, I mentioned it to you guys, and I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
Listening to the regressives, to me it just seems like they are putting out this idea that there are these boogeymen, and like I couldn't believe what was his name, Aslan or Aslan?
Reza.
Yeah, he in that interview with him and Cenk, he would make all these accusations about what the kinds of things that Harris was saying, but none of it was quotations. He was just basically painting Sam Harris as a terrible person who is an Islamophobe and who is in favor of wiping out Muslims, which I've never heard Harris say anything close to that. In fact, some of his pieces and articles and things have even said, well, we need to work with moderate Muslims because they are our best bet at moving, more extreme Muslims towards reform and interpretation of the Quran in ways that are more palatable and more inclined toward kind of coexistence and cohabitation of the planet in a peaceful way. When you can take jihad and turn it into something less literal, the extremists want to wage literal war, jihad, holy war on the West, and the moderates will interpret that as being kind of a spiritual quest or a battle against temptation or those kinds of things. And the more people that take that less literal interpretation of the Quran, the better off you are. And who better to persuade true believers than other people who truly believe that that make that case to their peers. So that's clearly not saying we need to blow up everyone or whatever. So to me, right off the bat, it sounds like they are more interested in shutting down the conversation than they are in actually engaging with the ideas, producing criticism of the ideas. And then I mentioned this, before we went live and things, that Sam Harris, on the other hand, when he sat down with Cenk to discuss that other conversation, he gave very specific and detailed examples and quotations of where Aslan had said things that weren't true, where and in defense of his position, he also gave very specific interpretations and data that backed up what he was saying. And in that conversation, what he was defending was that you can take the Bible and you can take the Quran and you can take other holy texts or sacred texts of the different religions, and you can do a genuine data analysis of terrible and uncivilized things that they advocate for, and you can say one is better than the others, looking at that data. So, and Cenk in that conversation was just allergic to that idea. He refused to even consider that kind of analysis could be done. It seemed like. So I just, that to me is again, political correctness kind of gone awry. Why should we not be able to look at these things and make those kinds of determinations?
Yeah, the one thing that they will point to with Sam Harris is that at the end of I think it was his first book, The End of Faith, he's having this kind of hypothetical discussion about the idea of if an Islamic extremist group suddenly took power of a nation or whatever that had access to long-range nuclear missiles, he brings up the thought experiment of what should we do in that situation, and he brings up the idea of should we consider the idea of a nuclear first strike in that situation. And he argues that we should consider that, because in that instance, he makes a comparison between the U.S. and the Cold War, U.S. and Russia during the Cold War, where Russia and the United States were both, as he calls it, rational actors in that situation, where neither one of us wanted to die. But if you have a government that has the same mentality as the 9/11 hijackers, who actively want to die and believe that dying is the way to get to heaven, that's a different situation, and we can't afford to treat it like it is the same situation as the Cold War, against Russia, and as opponents. We have to treat them like different opponents than we treated Russia during the Cold War. And so that is like something, and I get why that is concerning for somebody like Cenk or Reza Aslan, who are, they're both liberals, and they're afraid that that idea supports kind of like just conservative what's the word I'm looking for? Just this kind of conservative carelessness about how they view Islam and that whole thing, and so that they're afraid that might seep into that mindset, and then it's just kind of like, okay, don't worry about the Muslims. I get that, but that isn't what Sam Harris is advocating. And another issue that they'll point to is Sam Harris on torture, because Sam Harris has not advocated for torture, but he has, again, in kind of a thought experiment way, discussed about situations in which, in his view, he could see a rational justification for torture. And I won't get into that, but so there's a couple of issues in which Sam Harris, his views from the perspective of Reza Aslan and Shank and other people like that, they view his views as being in line with conservatives, and so there's this kind of like knee-jerk reaction to oppose those views. And I will say personally, in my case, and I didn't get into detail about Sam Harris on torture, but I disagree with Sam Harris on his views on torture, but I am more in line with his views as far as a nuclear first strike. But I'm able to make distinctions about views and why he holds his views and why I hold my views, and I can argue for or against my views. So.
Whew! That was a mouthful, guys. I just have one question.
Yeah.
What's a regressive liberal? I'm just kidding.
I'll say one more thing real quick, because I feel like with that whole Ben Affleck thing, and I think it goes a long way to kind of understanding that mindset and kind of the initial reaction to Sam Harris, because I think as liberals we generally want to protect the minority, and I think that's the right view to have. So when you hear somebody kind of criticizing somebody who you view as the minority, or seeming to attack the minority, you have this kind of knee-jerk reaction to defend the minority and call out somebody who is criticizing them. But it's the wrong approach. It kind of suffers from the same problem. It's a symptom of the same mindset as this conservatives have, where you have this sort of unguided principle that guides your decisions, and you don't really think about why you hold that principle. So, like, yeah, it's good to protect the minority, but you also have to be aware of why you're doing that, or what is going on underneath the surface.
Well, and what does that protection of the minorities entail? Is it a protection of them being, are they immune from any criticism, or do we protect their rights and give them equal rights to view their errors, to their opinions, and participate in society fully? I think that's in the right. But does it mean that they're protected from any kind of criticism or critical analysis of their views and things? And that's when I think we've crossed into a line that's absurd.
And it's a confusing issue too, because if Ben Affleck was living over in one of these Muslim countries where they were doing things like throwing acid into people's face, as a liberal, I can't imagine that he wouldn't be compelled to be outspoken. Obviously, it'd be a very dangerous thing to do, but he would be against those things. And that's kind of the issue that Sam Harris and other people are trying to point out. Like, these actions that some of these people are doing are the least liberal actions you can imagine, and they're being done by like the most conservative of conservative people on the face of the earth. And not to say that conservative people are bad, but it's this kind of weird situation where you have the liberals, the quote-unquote regressive left, like kind of defending these horrible actions, or shielding horrible actions from criticism is a better way to say it. Shielding these people from criticism just on this kind of blind principle. That's all I have to say about that for now.
That's all. So, so yeah, that's a really complex sort of topic. I guess what we'll close on is you were going to give us an update on the lady that was trying to
Oh yeah.
convert you.
Yeah.
I thought you can give us a little update on that, and then we'll close out the hangout.
Sure. Yeah, this will be pretty quick, but so actually she no longer works with me, but she still is in email contact with me. And last time I updated you guys, I think was the last time we had an exchange, and that was a couple months ago. But she had contacted, sent me an email or whatever, giving the story about something very vague that happened with her pastor or something, where her pastor had prayed for her, and it was, in her opinion, like hit the nail on the head with her and was perfect or whatever. And I gave a long response, and then I didn't hear anything. And then about a week ago, she sent me another message, and is kind of is par for the course. It does not address anything that I put in the email. But so she gives me some more detail about her personal life and about like difficulties that she's having in her personal life. And I knew kind of some of the vague outline of some of it, but not as detailed as she gave me in this email. And she was kind of, and I won't get into that, but giving me all these troubles that she's gone through, and she gets to a point where she, at one point she's thinking, and I guess she had, problems with alcohol, and she was considering, and this is recent, like a couple days before she sent me this email, she's saying that she was at a point where she was considering giving up on not believing in God, but essentially obeying Him, and then and drinking, essentially allowing herself to slide back, as I think most Christians would kind of term it. But then essentially she has a dream in which let me see if I can quick bring it up here.
Sweet.
Yeah, here.
So were you guys really that close at your work that she?
Only because of this exchange.
So does she still think on some level that she can convert you?
Absolutely. That's her goal. That's her goal, is to convert me.
She's trying really hard. I think you should just go for it.
Let me see here. She says, I'm going to try and make sure I don't use her name. I don't think it pops up here at all. But I was at my lowest and weakest. I felt I had no strength at all. I fell asleep, and then I started dreaming. I dreamt I was in a church sitting on the last bench. I was listening to the pastor preach, but kind of not paying attention. Sounds about right. The pastor started walking down the aisle towards me. I closed my eyes and I heard, "Why do you want to leave?" I started crying, but a cry was uncontrollable. Then I heard, Then I heard, "Get up, get up." My body started rising, but it wasn't me doing it. It was a strength. As my body started rising, I kind of got scared because it wasn't my strength. When I was all the way up, my hands were lifted, and again, by this strength that wasn't mine. I saw a bright flash, and when I saw, I woke up. And so that's the end of that story. Let me see here. She says she knew that the strength came from God.
Ew.
Yeah, and let me see.
Sounds like alien strength to me.
Well, yeah, could be. You'll never understand the mind of God, but he will let us hit rock bottom just so we can call to him and put all our trust in him. He is amazing. That's the end of
That's
that.
fucked up.
Yeah, so, like...
Like, he could have helped her long ago, but he's like, I'm going to wait till you are just so bad off that you just consider giving up on everything. Then I'm going to help you.
Yeah, hit rock bottom, or her words exactly, and it's just like... I still have to respond to this because I was busy and got away from it, but it's just to me it's kind of amazing to think that would be. I mean, you know it's literally a dream. It's not like she's even trying to pretend like this is something that happened.
Like a vision.
Yeah, it's a dream. You dreamed it, and you were. Of course you were dreaming about something that you've been obsessing about. Like, we do that all the time. When our Gavagai and I are brothers, when our mother died about a year ago, yeah, I know, I had a bunch of dreams about my mom. So that's not surprising at all because of what had happened. So, like, yeah, you dream about things that are happening in your life. But yeah, so that I found that both kind of amusing and perplexing, and I don't even know, I don't know the best way to address it because it's so nothing. There's so much nothing there that I don't know what the best way to handle that is. But I have to deal with that at some point, I guess. But.
Just type in WTH and just hit reply.
I'll just hit, holy shit.
How do you... I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I think I told this story a long time ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know somebody who is an older lady, and she had claimed that she had a dream. She was looking for a truck, a very specific type of truck. She wanted like some like orange truck or something like that. And she had this dream about this truck, and then from God or whatever. And then like a year later to the day of the dream, she found that exact truck. And that was enough for her to confirm that God sent her a dream a year ago.
Yeah.
It's like finding meaning in clouds, you know, when you find like shapes in clouds and stuff.
Right. And I mean, God can do these things at any point in time, and they're still, you know, from God. You know, it doesn't. There's.
The next question I generally ask is, awesome, God sends you a message. By the way, how do you determine if a dream that isn't sent by God and a dream sent by God?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, like for her, for my person, I'm sure it's because of the meaning that she feels behind it. So.
Yeah, I've asked people questions like that before, and what they've said is, "Oh, you just know."
I assume it's going to be some sort of inane answer, but you just know.
Your left toe starts twitching.
I think my response is going to be kind of what your first thought was too, Heathen, is kind of addressing the fact that if this is God, why is he letting you feel so miserable? You know, like, I don't know that I will word it like this, but because my thought is, if you were in a real human relationship with somebody who allowed you to reach the bottom of the barrel before they, you know, helped you out, like, I would tell you to get out of that relationship because that's not a healthy relationship. If you're constantly feeling bad about this situation, but then, you know, every once in a while you feel good about it, that's not healthy for you.
It's the abused spouse thing. It's well, he beat the shit out of me, but I deserved it. And
but you wouldn't if you had your alcoholic Uncle Barry, come, you know, make an ass out of himself at every house party, And you wouldn't wait, if you're really concerned about his health, you wouldn't wait till he was like, in the gutter shitting himself before you said, hey man, you may want to get a handle on that drinking. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just don't. You step in as soon as there's concern involved, and I mean, I'm sure she can chalk it up to any sort of message she wants, like God had to strip everything away before I can see the truth, or I mean, you can.
Well, and the other thing too is it didn't change anything. Like, her life's still exactly the same. She just had this dream. She feels different. It's not like any solutions for any of her problems appeared. It's just she had this dream and it made her feel a certain way, and then she just goes back to doing what she's doing. So thanks, I guess.
Isn't that enough to make you believe?
Yeah, I guess.
All right, well, that's all I got. Anything else you guys want to share before we go?
Oh,
any plugs?
I do have one last thing that I wanted to mention. So, Jungle Jargon, who some of us have interacted with before, posted.
We were having such a good time.
I know. Hold on, though. This is fun. He posted an article from the Christian Times about Chicago thugs killing a black Trump supporter, and so I looked into it, and Snopes. I was surprised because it was pretty recent. It was posted by the Christian Times March 12th, and already there was a Snopes article about it. So it's that bad that they could investigate this that quickly and put up a false thing on Snopes. And then you go to the Christian Times website where the article is posted, and I'm going to screen share this one. Hang on, real quick. Here it goes. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
There's a disclaimer. Christian Times newspaper is your premier online source for news, commentary, opinion, and theories. Christian Times newspaper does not take any responsibility for any of our readers' actions that may result from reading our stories. We make it abundantly aware not all stories are necessarily grounded in fact. We do our best to provide accurate, updated news and information.
What does that even? We make it abundantly aware. Wouldn't the word be clear? Like, abundantly clear?
Yeah. Not all of their stories are grounded in fact. That's, I think, the big takeaway. Yeah. And the fact that they can't write in sentences. But anyways, that's all I had to share for that one.
Well, I feel abundantly aware now. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's there's one thing that I wanted to. I guess I didn't write it on my own. God damn it. Never mind. I was just kidding. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Never mind, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And just remember, after you watch this, that this show was much better than that Dillahunty thing. All right, folks. Have a great day.